So today we're going to explore 5 reasons why your chord progression might be boring or sound flat. And more importantly, how to fix them. So let's get straight into it after the intro. Welcome back to the studio, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, quick disclaimer before we continue. I'm by no means a keyboard warrior myself. I mean, when it comes to my encounters with pianos, has not always been harmonious. Have not always been someone who, every time I touch the piano, it's just fire. But yeah, when it comes to writing melodies that really resonate with the people, that resonates with the emotions of people, remember, your instrument, your music carries emotion. So that emotion is what you want to tap into. When it comes to writing melodies that resonate with people, I've had my share of success, both with fast tempo and slow tempo. With that said, let's explore the captivating world of Afrobeats. Afrobeats often revolves around using 2 chords progression in a 4/4 count, or even a 3 chord progression within the same count. Some songs thrive on a single chord progression throughout the track. We've seen the example of this simplicity leading to top charting hits with billions of streams. Take songs like Calm Down by Rema, for instance, and Pana by Techno, which I had the pleasure of producing, or Buga by Kiss Daniel, just to name a few. However, we are here to address the specific issue: boring chord progression. Number 1, lack of variation. Repetitive chords and shape can quickly become predictable and monotonous. To avoid this, it is essential to introduce variation to your music. I'm an advocate of repeating things, but repeating things without variation is just like a robot hitting things bang, bang, which is why we try to impute different velocities when we're making music. When you have something doing bum 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 on FL, when you have the graph and then you reduce the velocity, if you're goes. If you have something that should come back time and time in the music, don't let it come back the same way. Use automation to create different things. Use the LFO to pitch things up and down, to just give it a movement. Because when people listen to the song the first time, the second time, they already know what to expect. So always try to put a code inside your music where every time they come back to it, they hear something that, I didn't know this was here. If they listen maybe on a phone speaker, they say, this thing is here on a phone speaker, and it's not blah, blah. Do you understand? So hide your messages in your track. So number 2 reasons why your chord progression might be boring is overused or cliche progression. So overused or cliche progression talks about a certain chord progression that have been exhausted in popular music. Relying solely on these familiar progressions can make your music sound unoriginal and less fresh. When you have a chord progression that is popular, for instance, when I made Pana by Techno, the chord progression started going from there. Everyone started copying the chord progression, the drum pattern. You can have a chord progression come to life by just adding maybe the 13th, maybe the 11th, maybe the 9th of that same chord progression. When you have a normal chord progression, your normal triad, or maybe your 7th, your dominant 7th, and then you want to add the 9th one to it, you add it to it. It gives it another feel, it gives it another interpretation. Moving on, the 3rd reason why your chord progression might be boring is lack of tension and release. Yes, everything is just going boom. There's no place where people are wondering, what's going to happen? There's no place where you're adding tension. Of course, chord progressions can add tension, because most of my students, when we say tension, they tend to think of the riser. Of course, that's a way to go. But understanding how you mix your major and minor chords together will even help you a great deal to create tension. This moment you're happy, next moment you're feeling it somewhere in between, which is what we introduce in major and minor. Don't worry, when we get to how you can make it better, you would understand. That's when I will go using a particular song that we all know to explain what the chord progression in that song did. 4th reason why your chord progressions might be boring is lack of harmonic complexity. So basic triads, like I said before, Basic triads. What is a triad? Your root, your third, and your fifth. Your root, let's say for instance, that will be your C, E, and your G. That's your basic triad. The seventh is just 2 notes ahead of that, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On your C major scale, for instance, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say 7 for instance. Of course, this comes back. Sorry. Of course, this comes back to 1. So 7, then you have 8, then you have 9. You see your 7th is the one before you get back to your 1. So that is exactly where your 7th come in. So it can be minor 7th, it can be major 7th. Basic triads or standard 7th chord may not provide enough color or depth to sustain interest. Exploring extended chords like modal integer can add more complexity and intrigue to your chord progressions. Yes, so trying to explore. So even if you know nothing about all these things, I will still go into the door and show you how you can build it from your triad and try to see what works, from having your triad to 7th to, even if you're adding 7th alone is a good way to start. Of course, I'm not saying play crazy progression that you don't even understand, but try something extra than that. You can see I have my headphones on. You can tell it's music time. So before I show you the difference between using just a triad chord and adding extra life to your music by borrowing notes from the chromatic or adding second and third dominant distinct. So first, tell me the difference, or tell me which do you prefer out of the 2 chord progressions. Listen to this. You know what? Let me play it with the instrument so that it makes more sense. On the same key, let me play you another one that sounds like this. You see that? The first one has a particular type of emotions it introduces us to. The second one has a place, has like a tropical island thing it's taking us to. So the difference between the first one and the second one is the first one uses just a triad chord progression. It's just a basic triad chord progression with the roots playing the bass. So that's why it sounds full. While the second one uses a 7th, a 9th, 11th, a sus2. Leave all those English. Don't worry too much about the meaning of those things. Worry about how they sound, So let's go into the door and let's see. Here are 5 ways that you can improve your boring chord progressions from boring to something that sounds interesting, that you can start getting the girls to feel some type of way when they listen to your music. So let's go. Pay attention to rhythm and voicing. Experiment with different rhythmic pattern and strumming techniques to add groove and momentum. Additionally, you can try voicing the chord in a different inversion. Remember how we spoke about the first inversion being the triad, being your roots, the third and fifth. You can flip that. You can do the first inversion. You can try the third inversion. Just anything that gets you off the normal place you are coming from, you can try that. When we say pay attention to patterns and rhythms, if you have a rhythm that goes like this, you can go the basic way, of course, the way we did before. There's nothing wrong with playing it this way, but it gets more interesting when you can go something like this. Instead of going the normal route, you go like this. Yeah. You understand? That adds movements. That adds different type of movement. The second thing you can add to your chord progression to bring your chord progression alive from boring to being alive is to explore chromatic movement. Of course, I don't know if this is too much of a term to use, but yeah, it's to explore chromatic movement. So when we talk about chromatic, you first need to understand what a chromatic scale is. This is what a chromatic scale looks like. It uses all the notes on the keyboard. So remember how we said Afrobeats, sometimes we use 2 chords, sometimes we use 3, sometimes we use 1. You are trying to play calm down, for instance. So I can go, baby, calm down, calm down. Yeah, this your body. Follow down, oh, sweet like Fanta. So this note here, is not, this chord is not part of the C whatever. I just borrowed the flat seventh. I just borrowed the flat seventh inside that chord progression. So if you are listening to the song and you hear, I just borrowed it to get, it's just a passing chord to get to where I'm going. In the case of our chord progression, let's see how we can add that. So let's play that in seventh. So the first one in, see the difference? Sounds gives you that emotional thing. You can even go as far as going to the ninth or adding the root. Those are the things that you can add to the song to really bring out the beauty in the song. Yes, so moving on to the next thing you can add to your chord progression to bring it to life, to bring it forward, to give it more emotion, is to add secondary dominance. Incorporate secondary dominance to create tension and resolution. Well, some of you might say, Chris, what is a secondary dominance? So in music, we're basically building blocks, creating blocks of emotions and sounds. If we want people to be happy, we can create it. If we want people to be sad, to cry, we can create it with music. The basic and most common stable chord is called a tonic, which is what we've been saying which is what we mentioned and said triad, is like a chord that gives you a sense of resolution. It's like coming back from a long journey, when you land. So it's like going to a long journey and coming back. So when you land, welcome back. So now imagine that you are in a musical journey and you want to create some excitement or tension before returning to your settlement. So like from C now, want to create a secondary dominant from C to A minor will be E major. Yes. You get to see that. So adding secondary dominance to your voicings can help a lot in giving meaning to your next chord progression, and that alone itself is already taking your progression from boring to very interesting. And all this tip I'm showing you has nothing to do with you knowing how to play the keyboard. One of the greatest producer in the history of African music is someone that cannot even play the keyboard, that has no knowledge about how to play the keyboard, but has knowledge on how to arrange the sound, particularly in the way that he wants. The fourth tip to bring your chord progressions to life is to experiment with extended uttered chords. Go beyond triads and seventh. Incorporate extended chords, 9th, 11th, 13th. Add chords, add augmented, diminished, source chord to add complexity and freshness. There's a whole lot of musical thing going on there. But the easiest way to explain it to you is think of the number I showed you earlier. See the triad, that's your root, your third, and your fifth. Your seventh is the number 7 to your root. Your ninth is the number 9 to your root. Your 13 is the number 13 to your root. Change the voicing to get a different character to your music. You understand? So yes, by addressing the reasons behind boring chord progression and implementing this 5 tip, you can break away from the bondage of monotony and explore, try out new sounds. Adding this type of steps will give you the beauty, will show you the beauty in your creativity. You will be able to bring in the right type of emotions that you want to have in your song easily in there. If that's what you can use, a complicated first chord, let the second chord be triad to just bring people back to what they are used to hearing. Then take it to another level again. That's not to say I've not made hits using just triad. Of course, I've done that using just triad. The Philo with Bella Shmurda and Omale, I used just triads. The good thing about using just triad is when you use triad, you can use another instrument to play, maybe like a complicated line that you want to add to complement that chord progression. So for the Philo, I used the 808 conga to add like a hidden message, like I told you in the beginning of this video, to add a hidden message. So yes, try this tip today and thank me tomorrow. And yes, leave your thoughts in the comment section. I love what you guys are doing in the comment section. Let me know, if you have a best way that you think people can try this out. Leave in the comment section. Let them learn. Let's learn. It's not no man is an island. Let's all come together and grow the community. Yeah, with that said, love, peace, and I'll see you in the next class.